we talk about sporting moments, but this is just unlike anything that the company has ever done before. I was in Qatar for the duration of the tournament in 2022, and it's just such a different animal because you could go to 4 games in a day. You can't go to 6 across 3 countries this time around.
Hey everybody, Tom Jones here, and this week the World Cup gets underway, a massive global sporting event. It's taking place in North America, Canada, United States, Mexico, and The Athletic is going to cover this like they've never covered anything before. They have over 100 journalists covering this event. We're talking about 104 matches over 16 cities, 39 days. Again, just a massive event for them. And leading that coverage is Laura Williamson. She is the editor-in-chief of UK and Europe for The Athletic, and she is our guest today. We had a really fascinating conversation. We're going to talk about the event in terms of just how to cover something on that scale, the changing habits of viewers, what's different between American and European fans, and the political aspect of this World Cup. So all that coming up in just a moment with Laura Williamson.
From the worldwide leader in journalism, truth, and democracy, this is the Poynter Report Podcast, a joint production between the Poynter Institute and the Department of Journalism and Digital Communication at the University of South Florida, St. Petersburg. Now here's your host from the Poynter Institute, Tom Jones.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining us, and I welcome in our guest, Laura Williamson, editor-in-chief for the UK and Europe for The Athletic, who will help lead The Athletic's coverage of the World Cup, which begins this week in North America. Laura, first off, thanks for joining us. I imagine you're a little busy these days. So I imagine like you were saying just a moment ago, that it's a little bit like a chicken with his head cut off. So thanks for joining us.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me.
We all know, like the World Cup, obviously a huge deal globally, and more so than ever in the United States this year because of where the event's being held. But I have some statistics here. I just want to go over them just to give our audience some sort of idea of what you're dealing with over the next month and a half. Talking about 104 matches across 16 cities in the U.S., Canada, Mexico. You guys at The Athletic, you'll be working with more than 100 full-time soccer journalists. They're writing stories for the site. You have video, you have social media, you have newsletters, you have podcasts. We're talking 39 days of the actual event. So how are you standing up right now without pulling your hair out? Like, are you loading up on tea and coffee? Like, what are you feeling at this moment?
I know, I think I'm injecting caffeine straight into my veins at this point. It's been just, as you say, the scale of this thing, I think is almost difficult for people to understand. Like we have planned. This has been an 18-month planning journey, really, for us, in terms of how we're going to approach this absolute beast of a sporting event and the logistics of how we're going to put the jigsaw together. We are going to have at least one person, usually 2 or 3 or more, at every single one of those 104 games. We will cover every game live. And then, as you say, the multi-platform approach means that this is an absolute beast of an event. But it's also a huge opportunity because, as you say, it's in North America. And I work for The Athletic, which is an organization that was founded in Chicago. So it's sort of the perfect combination of both things. But the scale of this. I mean, I'm sure you can imagine how many times people have said to me, "Oh, it's like the Super Bowl." No, it's not.
it's like 104 Super Bowls.
Exactly that.
I saw a statistic the other day at the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. The Athletic had like 21 full-time soccer journalists, which when you think about it, 21 is a massive number for to cover any event. And now you're talking like 5 times that, which is like an insane number to me. And you mentioned the scale and clear, look, it's not like you guys had a meeting. You mentioned it was 18 months ago. You guys have been covering the World Cup for a while. It's not like the World Cup coverage starts this week when it gets underway. When you had that first meeting 18 months ago or so, Do you remember how you guys came out of that meeting in terms of like, not necessarily a mission statement, but like the philosophy, like how do we want to cover this massive event?
Yeah, a team of us went over to New York and had some meetings with different departments at the Times building, and at that point it was trying to convey the enormity of this thing. We talk about sporting moments, but this is just unlike anything that the company has ever done before. I was in Qatar for the duration of the tournament in 2022, and it's just such a different animal because you could go to 4 games in a day. You know, you can't go to 6 across 3 countries this time around. So I think there was that aspect of trying to almost sort of do internal comms and PR really to explain the size of the opportunity and the scale of what we were undertaking. But then also to try and think very clearly about who we're doing this for, and who is our audience here, and also that this tournament isn't, on June the 19th isn't the end, like July the 19th isn't the end. This is another pathway into what's next for us with our sports coverage. So it was all of those things that were milling around, and then as time has gone on, we've really obviously crystallized our plans, and to be honest, video has been sort of the not unexpected, but the real growth of video as a platform, even over the last 18 months, has been another sort of factor to build in that we really want to talk to people wherever they are, rather than just sort of doing that journalism thing of opining from high, really, and hoping people listen.
Right. I do want to get into some of like specifics on, like, I hate to say alternative storytelling, but different ways to tell stories than I think what we're used to. But I did want to ask about, this is such a unique event in that you have people who are serious diehards when it comes to football, as it's called in the rest of the world. And yet in the United States, while it's obviously gained popularity, and I don't want to insult American audiences at all, for an event like this, it's very similar to the Super Bowl in that you have diehards and you have casual fans who are like, hey, what is this? What's going on here? Why all my buddies are going to the bar to watch? Like, so how do you sort of like balance that coverage of like, you got people who know every single player on every team, and then people are just like, hey, what is it? How does this tournament work?
Yeah, definitely. That has been absolutely crucial to all our planning, really, because we are talking to 2 distinct audiences, as you say. There's the very casual fan that wakes up this week and says, "Oh, the World Cup's on. This looks interesting," and the sort of cultural crossover, and kits and celebrity and the weather and all of this sort of stuff. And then you've got athletic subscribers who actually they may be more interested in what's going on in the transfer window and movement within their teams. If you're a diehard Manchester United fan, for example. Right. So we're very conscious that we have to cater for both of those audiences, and sometimes that means writing in US English, and sometimes that means writing in UK English, sort of as prescriptive as that. I think we do call it soccer because that's our audience, and as you say, there are lots of incredibly knowledgeable North American based soccer fans who we don't want to talk down to them. Right. They know far more than we do because they live and breathe their team day in, day out. So that's been a real tenement of our coverage, really. And like, for example, with our newsletter strategy, we've got the Athletic FC, which is very much a soccer football-based newsletter. It's for people who know and are passionate about the game. And then for the World Cup, we've got a new pop-up newsletter, which is much more for the casual fan. So sort of, what do I need to know? Because I do think that if you are informed about what you're watching, it aids your viewing experience, definitely.
Before The Athletic, you worked at the Daily Mail in London. You were a sports writer, and then you became the sports news editor, and then you became the executive sports editor at the Daily Mail before moving over to The Athletic. 2019? Do I get that right? You came over?
Yeah.
And you've spent time running the U.S. soccer coverage for The Athletic. So the reason I point all this out is that you have an extensive background in covering soccer from both a European aspect perspective and an American perspective. I don't mean this in terms of like how audiences necessarily view soccer, but how they view coverage of soccer, if that makes sense. Is there a difference in how Europeans consume coverage and how Americans consume it?
I think there are some differences in terms of, I would say very broadly that American audiences are far more attracted by individual players rather than perhaps teams.
Right.
I generally think that comes from the strength of EA and video games, that you find people get into the sport because they follow individuals, and then the fandom comes from there. So that's something I'm definitely very conscious of. But I think one of my real learnings since moving from the Mail, which very very tabloid and very good at sort of tapping into what people are talking about, really, to the Athletic, is that when you something like ticket prices, for example, our comments, you can tell where people are in the world from what they're saying. It's this idea that in the US, sport is a form of entertainment, and therefore $100 for a ticket is not abnormal. Whereas here, it's very much, there's a 20's plenty campaign. That would be,
Yeah.
it would be that, and those sort of points, definitely, you can definitely see the divide. But I mean, yeah, the knowledge base, and I know it's a cliche, but people getting up at 7:30 in the morning to watch the Premier League game, it's just so common now.
Right.
I really do think that it's America's second sport at
Now,
this point.
I'm a former sports writer, and so I know particularly among our popular, so when I say our, in the United States, American football, the NFL, and the NBA,
Yeah.
Major League Baseball, fans' habits have changed over the years. I'm a former newspaper sports writer, and I know there was a time when people used to follow the teams almost exclusively through newspapers.
Yep.
That has obviously changed. People still get their news from the newspaper. They read The Athletic to get the latest on their favorite teams, but they have definitely drifted into, now they read team sites. They read like fan blogs have become really popular, fan podcasts. There's some really good websites and fan sites out there where people have some really good and fun information. How has it worked for soccer? Have you seen that change in soccer as well?
Oh, very much so. I think that focus on almost community is
Right.
so important. That again, it sounds a bit sentimental, but I do think soccer gives people a touch point to convene and share opinions or disagree about their opinions that you don't often get in any other settings anymore. And I mean, the rise of fan media has been extraordinary, because again, it's that belonging, that sense of belonging to something. And that's why I'm, to be honest, so excited about the World Cup, because we're all so splintered and disparate, aren't we? But actually, this is actually something that, for want of a better description, we can come together and look at. And I think the other aspect is fans are so knowledgeable. So it's really raised the bar in terms of the information we provide. Like, I'm always telling my reporters, like, our job is to tell people things they don't know about what it is they care about, and in this case, it's their football team or a player or whatever it is. And I do think that bar is higher, because if you're somebody who's consuming Arsenal coverage, left from everywhere you can get it, like, how do we cut through? And the answer is by breaking news and providing information that you can't get from AI, and you can't get from fan sites.
I imagine you're a soccer fan. We work in the industry, so we lose our allegiances for the most part. But I'm still, even when I was covering, I was still a fan of this sport. I imagine you are too, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
How do you, like, what do you consume? Like, what do you follow besides your terrific writers at The Athletic?
Yeah, obviously, we got The Athletic.
but what does what do you consume, or what does your fan do if your families and friends are soccer fans? Like, not necessarily specific sites, or you can offer that, but I mean, just in general, how do they consume sports soccer coverage?
Yeah, it's for me, it's the and maybe it's because I sit in an office so much now, but it's the live experience of watching the game, either in a stadium and that discussion and community aspect, or almost like the second screen experience. And what are they saying, and what are they saying, and how am I interpreting what I'm seeing? I love that sort of collegiate community feel. I think for my dad is an absolute sports nut. It's that information. He would go to wherever the sort of yellow ticker breaking news is, and then listen to the debate on radio or on a podcast, which is exactly the same as me. And then for my son, it's short form video. It's explanations of why do I care about this? Why should this matter? Which the sort of the span of the three, I think, is why this industry is in such an interesting place at the moment.
And I imagine you've taken the experiences of your dad and your son and you and others and apply that to your coverage. Is that correct to say? Like, I mean, does it influence the way you think about how the Athletic should or will cover this event?
Yeah, it really does. I mean, without sort of wanting to not excel at anything, can be everything to everybody sort of thing. We're very conscious about that. Like, who are we writing for, or who are we broadcasting for, and in which form is it best placed, really? Because I think, as you said earlier, our industry is so different now. And yes, there will always be a place for beautiful sports writing that we all adore. But it's just which form that takes sometimes, I think.
Right. And so you have seen the change from, I mean, like I said, you've been doing this for a while in different, as a writer, as an editor, somebody who leads the coverage, like you've seen the change, right? Over the last 10 years, even.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And when The Athletic launched in the UK in 2019, in a way, it gave us a chance to sort of rip it up and start again. Like, another thing, I probably bore them to tears, but I don't want my writers to just go to an event and write about it. Like, that is not enough. It might be a beautiful way they can convey it, but there's got to be information in there. There's got to be a nugget of something that they craft their piece around. Like the sort of traditional match report that I used to write, that was the majority was filed at 60 minutes, and then you put a top and a tail on it. Like, that's gone, because the fan has been watching the game with you. So how can you elevate your copy or your video or your podcast to tell them something they don't know? That's the challenge.
I am a crotchety old sports writer, so I know how sort of rigid that I would be if an editor would tell me, like, we need to, like, has it been difficult to sort of grow your sports journalist to, like, think in a different way? Because, like I said, coming from a crotchety old sports writer, I know how difficult we can be on that sort of thing.
Completely. I think because we've been very fortunate in that, when The Athletic launched here 7 years ago, we didn't know if this thing was going to work, right? We didn't know if it was going to survive. So that sort of entrepreneurial, let's try something different, is really carried through. And then on the other side of it, we're actually quite a traditional newsroom. Like, I'm in our London office at the moment. We have a newsroom. It's that doesn't really exist everywhere. We're very, very fortunate that exists. So I think that sort of almost bravery of trying different things, combined with really traditional sort of editor-writer relationships, and a lot of trust there, I think has been quite a winning formula so far.
We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk to Laura about the important World Cup coverage away from the pitch. But a quick reminder, if you like this conversation and conversations about the media, please give us an excellent rating if you're watching on YouTube. And if you're going for a walk or traveling or whatever, you can listen to us on Apple, Google, and Spotify. We appreciate you listening. And don't forget that excellent rating. Back in a moment with Laura.
Take your career to the next level. The University of South Florida, St. Petersburg, is offering a master's degree in digital journalism and design. Do the entire program from home and complete it in as little as 1 year. For more information, email journalism@usf.edu or call 727 873-4544. The cost is reasonable. The experience is invaluable.
Obviously, besides the sport of it, Laura, the World Cup is a cultural phenomenon. It's a social phenomenon. There's obviously a political aspect to all this. I know you guys have had coverage already involving ticketing and host cities and that, but sort of away from the pitch, away from the games. What is some of the coverage you're expecting to take place over the next month and a half and beyond?
Yeah, deep breath. Yeah. I think ticket prices have been actually an incredible storyline to follow. Henry Bushnell and Adam Crafton at The Athletic have meticulously actually charted just how expensive this World Cup is, and also, to be honest, where the take-up has been minimal in some places. The US first game, as of last week, had still not sold out, and it was actually nowhere near. So we've really taken care to chart that, and also the transport costs. $98 to get from Penn Station to MetLife is, and you have to pre-book. You can't. I think that's what another aspect that people haven't quite got through. You can't turn up and buy a ticket. Like you have to do that in advance. And then hotels, the sort of cost of attending this thing has been something we've really taken care to chart. There are things like the heat, the infrastructure, the quality of the pitches. They're going to be really big storylines that will only get bigger and bigger. The political machinations, obviously, with the Trump presidency and the impact on visas. And I mean, I can't believe it's taken me this long to mention. Iran are playing in this World Cup. They're due to land in. They were due to land in Mexico on Saturday, and then we'll be crossing into the US. Like, if you just look at that in isolation, it's incredible, absolutely incredible. And then you've got things like the relationship between FIFA and the US political system. Gianni Infantino, the FIFA president, we've really charted his every move, because that's such an interesting story about his relationship with Trump and the concessions that he sort of needed to get this thing on the road, really. Because I think that's something that's been sort of at the back of our reporting, is that this is the first World Cup that FIFA has actually organised. In terms of previously, you'd have, so in Qatar, for example, you'd have a local organising committee who would do the bulk of the organisation. But because this is over 3 countries and 16 cities, it's sort of lots of little kingdoms that FIFA are supposed to bring together. So another area has been like, what is the cost to the US taxpayer, for example, with those 11 host cities, and the lessons that will be learned ahead of the 2031 Women's World Cup, for which the US is the only sole bidder, along with the 3 other countries in a joint bid. So yeah, a lot to look at, but I just think it's so important that we do. Like, as I say, I was in Qatar, and the human rights issues, that they shouldn't go away just because this tournament is being hosted in North America. Like, we have to look at those same issues just because it's in the US, Canada, and Mexico.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, this is where I applaud organizations like The Athletic, because I mean, the easy thing would be for a lot of news organizations, like, we're just going to concentrate on the sport of it. And I think I think TV networks also fall under that same sort of criticism from diehard fans. Like, I don't want to mix my politics and my sports, but it's a story that's too big to ignore, obviously.
Oh, I really believe it is. I think you can't draw a line. It's as recently as 2018 and the World Cup's in Russia, and look what's happened since then. There's so many stories, and going forward to Saudi Arabia in 8 years' time, etc. I mean, it was, in a way, it's sort of heartening and reinforces that this is the right approach. But in 2022, one of our most successful pieces was about Lionel Messi's relationship with Saudi Arabia. And I mean, of course, we ran it on the day that Saudi Arabia happened to beat Argentina, but the premise of the piece and the reporting had absolutely nothing to do with football. It was about a footballer and his relationship with a state. And in a way, as I say, that was heartening that, this journalism is not only important, but it's being well read as well, which is what we all want to do ultimately.
Absolutely. So this is a massive question, and so you can take as little or as long as you want to answer. But I'm a big soccer fan. I wake up 2 weeks from today, and I wake up and I want to know what does the Athletic have for me today? I mean, I know you got podcasts, you got news stories, if I am, say I'm an American soccer fan, I root for America, but I also I like some guys from Arsenal who are playing for Spain or whatever, what am I getting as an Athletic subscriber on a typical World Cup day?
Okay. Well, I would start with our sort of 90-second video of here's what happened yesterday, here's what's happening today, this is what you need to know. Then I would play our predictions game, which allows you to pick the results of the games that day and go up against, wait for it, a child, a dog, a robot, and other subscribers, and see where you're going. And from there, on our World Cup landing page, you will be able to navigate whatever it is that you want to read. We'll obviously have a huge focus on the US team because we absolutely should. And it's going to be fascinating to see how they do. But equally, if you are an Arsenal fan and you want to see whatever the breaking news David Ornstein's just delivered about the transfer window, then you'll be able to find your way through to that as well.
So we're recording this actually the week before the World Cup starts, but when this comes out, it'll be literally on the eve of the World Cup kicking off. How are you nervous right now? Are you excited? Like, sort of, what is, just personally, like, where's your sort of state of mind as you have this? And at the end, again, I want to repeat, like, it's not like you just woke up this week and like, oh, we got the World Cup next week. You've been working on this for a while, and you've been writing stories and putting out videos and all that. But on the eve of the actual event, how are you feeling right now?
I just want a ball to be kicked. I just want to see. I just want to see that Adidas ball skid across a possibly very hot, sweaty bit. I just want the football to start. This isn't my first rodeo. Like, I think back to something like London 2012, and I do believe in sports ability to unite people. And I'm very excited about that. And I'm not worried about what's to come. I think we've got so many brilliant people doing so many brilliant things. I think my only concern is there's too much. And as you in your last question, how do you navigate around all of this incredible journalism? But I just want it to start now.
What's your plan? Like, in a month and a half, like, what's your plan? Are you going to be sitting on a beach drinking like a big fruity drink when this is over, or are you just on to the next thing?
Oh, I know. We had a meeting the other day about the start of the Premier League season. I was like, no, I'm not mentally prepared for this yet. I'm not mentally prepared. I will be definitely taking a bit of downtime and probably watching my kids play football.
There you go.
That's my life.
Before I let you go, too, I just really noticed in your background, that's a really cool SUV with the Athletic logo on it. That's awesome.
Yeah. You know they use them at track and field events, Olympics, to like take the shot put out and things like that. So we got one for the last Euros and drove it round outside Wembley because we do fun stuff like that.
You should put it on your merch store, and then people would buy that thing, I think. So, well, Laura, thanks so much for your time. I know you're super busy. We look forward to the athletics coverage. I know you're a journalist, again, objective and all that, but any predictions? I mean, are we looking? So, how's the U.S. going to do? Are we looking at Spain, England, France? Like, who shall we be watching in particular?
I really hope the US get to, let's say, the last 16. I think if they can finally win a knockout round, that would be enormous.
I think that's a long shot, by the way, but go ahead.
I do too. Yeah, that's what Paul Tenorio, that's his version. He's our main US soccer guy. I do worry about England in the heat, but I think semi-finals is realistic, and Argentina, I can't get past Argentina again. Still, they just have a way. They just have a way.
While we're all enjoying it, you're going to be working really hard. Hopefully you can enjoy a little bit of it too. So thank you so much. Thanks to everyone for watching and listening. A reminder, we have 5 seasons now of the Poynter Report podcast available anytime. You can watch seasons 3 through 5 on YouTube. You can check us out on Apple, Spotify, and Google. Check out our past episodes with people like Chuck Todd, Jen Psaki, Tom Yamas, and many others. We're on our summer schedule, so we're coming out every 3 weeks. Thanks again for watching. I'm Tom Jones. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Poynter Report Podcast. The views and opinions of this episode's guest and the host are not associated with nor reflect those of the University of South Florida. The podcast is produced by the Department of Journalism and Digital Communication at the University of South Florida, St. Petersburg. Executive producers are Elliot Weiser and Ren LaForm. Our producers are Tom Jones and Stephanie Broughton, and our director is Christopher Campbell. And a special thank you to Neil Brown and Dr. Mark Walker.